Hello there, dear students. The title of this lecture is The Tragic End. In the previous lecture, as you know, we talked about the disastrous voyage of Robinson Crusoe, and we called it so because this voyage will lead him to his tragic end, which is being shipwrecked and cast away on a remote island. The aim of this voyage, as you know, is of course, to enslave the Negroes of Africa. To bring them and oblige them to serve the merchants and the plantation owners of Brazil. Crusoe, who has denied, of course, the help of these poor people, the Negroes, who showed their hospitality and generosity. It seems that Crusoe is motivated by his desire to gain money. But Crusoe's plan comes upside down, since he and his friends have been attacked by a violent tornado that makes it difficult for them to sail peacefully to Africa. The narration of Robinson Crusoe also shows that the ship strikes upon the sand and the high waves of the sea break over the board, creating chaos and horror. In this lecture, let us see what they are going to do to save themselves. Students, will you please open your books on page 34, the first paragraph. In this distress, the mate of our vessel lays hold of the boat, and with the help of the rest of the men, they got her slung over the ship's side. Her refers here to the boat. And getting all into her, let go and committed ourselves, being 11 in number, to God's mercy and the wild sea. For though the storm was abated considerably, yet the sea went dreadful high upon the shore, and might well be called the wild sea, as the Dutch call the rest in in a storm. Students, as you know, the ship strikes upon the sand. Crusoe's ship strikes upon the sand, and it is difficult and impossible to get it off. They have nothing to do. Crusoe and his friends, the seamen, of course, they have nothing to do save saving themselves. So the situation now is beyond their limitation, their human limitation. They are obliged to leave the ship since it is full of water. They try to save themselves by using a boat. By doing so, they have delivered their souls to God's mercy and the wild sea. Now the next paragraph, please. And now our case was very dismal indeed, for we all saw plainly that the sea went so high that the boat could not live, and that we should be inevitably drowned. As to making sail, we had none, nor if we had, could we had done anything with it. So we worked at the road towards the land, thou with heavy hearts, like men going to execution. For we all knew that when the boat came nearer the shore, she would be dashed in 1,000 pieces by the beach of the sea. Crusoe here shows that he and his friends, the seamen, live dreadful moments, since it is not safe to sail in a small boat and the sea goes so high. There are 11 men struggling the high waves of the sea, trying to reach the land that seems to them their only aim, which is very difficult to achieve. Crusoe describes the situation here in this small boat that is driven by the mountains of the sea as men being led to execution, or men led to be beheaded, which shows that they are very desperate and very afraid. However, we committed our souls to God in the most earnest manner, and the wind driving us towards the shore, we hastened our destruction with our own hands, pulling as well as we could towards the land. Students, we are still discussing the same page, page 34, the second paragraph, in which Crusoe continues his narration saying that he and the seamen surrender to their mysterious fate. Now they are driven by the wind towards the shore. They run towards death. This is what Crusoe has described here. They draw their tragic end by their own hands. What leads Crusoe to say that? To say that they have run towards their destruction or death. Crusoe says so because later, when he's going to survive death, he is going to realize that they have committed a great mistake when they decide to leave the ship and to sail using the boat. Later, Crusoe is going to discover that the ship is the most secure place to them. Crusoe continues his narration saying, "What the shore was, whether rock or sand, whether steep or shoal, we knew not. The only hope that could rationally give us the least shadow of expectation was if we might happen into some bay or gulf or the mouth of some river, whether by great chance we might have run out our boat in or got under the lee of the land and perhaps made smooth water. But there was nothing if of this appeared, but as we made nearer and nearer to the shore, the land looked more frightful than the sea." Crusoe and his friends have no idea about the shore. They hope to be driven into a gulf or a mouth of a river to protect themselves from the high waves of the sea that break upon them. After we had rowed or rather driven about of a league and a half as we reckoned it, a raging wave mountain-like came rolling astern of us and plainly bade us expect the Cap de Grace. Students, Cap de Grace is a French word. It means knockdown. In a word, it took us with such a fury that it overset the boat at once and separating us as well from the boat as from one another, gave us not time hardly to say, "Oh God," for we were all swallowed up in a moment. Crusoe and his men keep struggling the dangerous sea in hope to reach the land and survive death. But this hope seems hopeless, since they have been attacked by a raging wave, which is described by Crusoe as a mountain that breaks or pours upon them. It gives them a knockdown or death blow. It overturns the boat and separates them from the boat and from one another. It gives them no time to call God's help. Nothing can describe the confusion of thought which I felt when I sank into the water, for though I swam very well, yet I could not deliver myself from the waves so as to draw breath, till that wave having driven me, or rather carried me a vast way on towards the shore, and having spent itself, went back and left me upon the land, almost dry, but half dead with the water I took in. Being separated from his friends, the seamen, Crusoe has to struggle the high waves of the sea alone. Even though he is a good swimmer, Crusoe confronts death itself. The high waves of the sea prevent him from drawing his breath. He is now completely driven by these waves. Students, there is a change in the narration of Crusoe here. Crusoe here stops talking about his friends. He starts narrating things related to himself, such as the confusion of his thoughts, the danger he confronts, and how he tries to save himself. This shows that Crusoe is left alone to face his destiny. He is now unaware of others, or what happens to others, what happens to his friends, the seamen. This is the beginning of Crusoe's isolation, in which he is going to be cut from his friends and from his society. Now, page 35, please. I had so much presence of mind as well as breath left that seeing myself nearer the mainland than I expected, I got up on my feet and endeavored to make on towards the land as fast as I could, before another wave should return and take me up again. But I soon found it was impossible to avoid it, for I saw the sea come after me as high as a great hole, and as furious as an enemy, which I had no means or strength to contend with. My business was to hold my breath and raise myself upon the water, if I could, and so, by swimming, to preserve my breathing, and pilot myself towards the shore. Crusoe here says that he tries to save himself. He swims as fast as he could, but he fails to reach the land. As he describes, the waves take him far away from the shore. He feels that it is difficult for him to overcome this huge power, the sea. The wave that came upon me again buried me at once 20 or 30 feet deep in its own body, and I could feel myself carried with a mighty force and swiftness towards the shore, a very great way. But I held my breath and assisted myself to swim still forward with all my might. I was ready to burst with holding my breath when, as I felt myself rising up so to my immediate relief, I found my head and hands shoot out above the surface of the water. Crusoe keeps fighting the sea to survive. He is drawn several times by the violent waves of the sea, but he keeps resisting this violence, trying to overcome this mighty force. I was now landed and safe on shore, and began to look up and thank God that my life was saved in a case wherein there was some minutes before scarce any room to hope. I believe it is impossible to express the life what the ecstasies and transports of the soul are when it is so saved, as I may say, out of the very grave. Finally, Crusoe has succeeded to overcome the power of the natural world represented by the sea. He has survived. Crusoe has survived. He thanks God of course, for helping him resisting this huge power and for saving him from an inevitable death. Images of the sea that are portrayed here. Sea images are used to portray the danger that Crusoe confronts here. The waves are mountains-like. They fall upon Crusoe and his men. The sea is delineated as a wild creature that swallows them in 1 minute. It is also described as a furious enemy or horrible enemy chasing Crusoe, trying to catch him or to pull him back to its horror. Crusoe seems unable to confront this furious enemy. Therefore, he tries to escape this horrible enemy. The sea is also delineated as a mighty force that violently attacks its victims. Finally, the sea is portrayed as a grave, the high wave of the sea that pours upon Crusoe has the power to bury him in its own body, and it prevents him from having his breath. These images are portrayed here to show the horror and danger which Crusoe and the seamen suffer from. The struggle of Robinson Crusoe. Daniel Defoe presents several conflicts in this novel: the emotional or psychological conflict, the moral conflict, and the physical one. All these types of conflicts are shown or presented to achieve the narration of one story. The psychological conflict or emotional conflict is shown at the very beginning of this novel between Crusoe and his father. Crusoe's father wants his son to be a lawyer and to live a life of stability. His wish, the wish of Crusoe's father, is faced with a refusal. Crusoe has refused to achieve his father's wish. Moreover, Crusoe neglects the advice of his father, an advice that, of course, warns him against riding the sea. The prophetic words of Crusoe's father, which are, "That boy might be happy if he would stay at home, but if he goes abroad he will be the miserable wretch that was ever born." Students, you can find these words in page 8. I said, these words are neglected and ignored by Crusoe himself. This negligence leads to his failure in most of his voyages. This failure seems to be the dominant end of Crusoe's voyages, a failure Crusoe struggles to overcome. But Crusoe has failed to overcome it, since it seems to be the result of his guilt, a guilt he insists on committing till it leads him to his tragic end, which is being shipwrecked and cast away on a remote island. The emotional or psychological conflict leads to the physical one, which the physical conflict is obviously seen between man and the natural world. In the pre-island life, Crusoe confronts the danger and horror of the sea. In most of his voyages, Crusoe is presented struggling the sea to save himself. In his last voyage, Crusoe's struggle against this powerful force seems to be very violent. It is presented to be a struggle against a dreadful force that separates or isolates Crusoe from his friends and later from his own society. Students, thank you for your listening.